and welcome to another episode of Tea and Tales. Today we have a very special business episode with CEO and founder of Vet Alliance, Mansoor AlShiha. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the whole conversation of how you built Modern Vet and Vet Alliance, can you very briefly explain what is Vet Alliance?
So Vet Alliance is a holding company, and it's a group of clinics and businesses within the veterinary and pet space. So you have Modern Vet, which is a group of clinics and kind of where we started.
Yeah.
And then we have Blue Oasis Vet, which is which was our first merger, and kind of like the diagnostics hub, where we have the first private MRI in Dubai, and kind of well known for that kind of field. And then we have Vienna Vet, which is a more affordable option and more community driven, I would say. And then we have Blue Sky Pet Relocation, which is our pet relocation arm. And then we have Floof, which is kind of like the tech glue that holds everything together, if that makes sense. Kind of like Chewy meets Fresha. And then we have kind of a sub-brand of Modern Vet, which is the Mobile Vet, which was the first kind of fully kitted van mobile vet in Dubai with like its own lab, and it's kind of like a clinic on wheels.
Amazing. And we also have the Farewell Pet Funeral Services coming soon,
We
right?
do. That's coming soon. Yeah, that's coming
Exciting.
in probably early January.
And then the very last one we have that I'm so excited to speak about today
Is the Veterinary Referral Center.
Amazing.
So the Veterinary Referral Center is the first of its kind, and it's going to be open in 2 weeks.
It's so exciting.
Very exciting. We have our stand in the Middle East and Africa Veterinary Conference next week, and yeah, I'm very excited for that launch.
Okay, so we'll dive into each of those more and how they all came about. If you can give us a little bit of a background about yourself, your upbringing, and the move to Los Angeles.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Dubai, and I went to college in Los Angeles, and I went to Loyola Marymount University, where they have like a entrepreneurship program. It was one of the first universities to kind of venture into the entrepreneurship field or as a major. And yeah, then I came back around 2017, 2018, and that's when I kind of took over Modern Vet, and it was Modern Veterinary Clinic at the time. There was 3 doctors working there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I think, a staff of like maybe 13 to 15 people. And then, yeah, we went from there.
So let's go back a step then. Tell us about Modern Vet's kind of creation and how it came about.
So Modern Vet started as Modern Veterinary Clinic. It was started in 1995.
So it's coming up to 30 years, right?
It's 30 years
30
now.
year
Yeah,
anniversary.
this year's our anniversary,
Wow.
actually, at the end of the year. And a few years before that, we had a dog called Dutchie. It was a family dog, and she got run over when she ran out of the house. And yeah, it was a traumatic experience for the family, and honestly, kind of, we took her to my family took her to the clinic, and there was no advanced care, there was no orthopedic care, there wasn't really the right medication, so we were advised to put her to sleep.
Wow. Yeah.
And that didn't sit right with my dad, who last minute kind of called the clinic at like right before closing and asked, like, did you guys do it? And they were like, no. And they were like, okay, we're going to pick her up and give her a fighting chance. And they did, and we did, and she lived 8 happy years after that.
Wow.
And I think, throughout that process, it kind of drove my mom a little bit crazy. She was like, well, I can't believe we almost did it.
Yeah, and like we're this close to doing it. It's
Exactly.
a very traumatic situation, and now we're put our dog to sleep or something for something maybe we didn't need to put him to sleep for.
Exactly. And so she went out of her way, and kind of that's when she opened Modern Veterinary Clinic. And we had one of the pioneering doctors here, Dr. Renata, and she stayed with the clinic up until last year. So she was with us close to 30 years as well. And yeah, it kind of like went through its, business cycle like any business does. And, I think after the 15-year mark or so, there was this boom in Dubai, and all these like expats came over and started opening businesses, and it didn't really keep up with the medicine and the standard of medicine that we had, kind of competing in the markets. And yeah, that's it kind of remained a GP practice with 3 doctors for I want to say around 15 to 20 years almost.
Okay, so what was the catalyst of kind of the transition of out of this kind of small 3-person vet clinic?
Well, when I was in Los Angeles, I had a dog. It's kind of funny because it's similar to the Dutchie story, ironically. Opie, and Opie was an Italian Greyhound, so like really really thin arms and feet,
Very
and
fragile dog.
yeah, very fragile, but full of energy.
Yeah.
And so I used to take her down to the boardwalk, and I had this like long board, and she had a harness, and the only way to tire her out was to have her just like sprint full speed, and she would kind of pull me. I used to call it one OP power, and I'd let her off the lead, and she would just literally run in circles on the grass fields. And when she did that, she kind of hit like a little hole in the grass and broke like a little part of her foot. We barely even noticed. She didn't even really limp until the next day.
Wow.
And so we took her to the clinic, and I was just like baffled because it was, a completely different experience to what I had seen in the veterinary field in Dubai.
Talk us through some of the differences that you saw, like from
So,
Dubai.
so we went to see a GP, and the GP referred us to an orthopedic surgeon, which was a whole department with a team of people and numerous orthopedic surgeons. And that I think they quoted us something crazy in the 20s of thousands of dollars at the time, and it freaked everyone out. We didn't know, but we weren't sure if she had to have surgery, so they said we were gonna just put her in a cast and see how she did. And thank God she was fine and went back to running in a month or two. But I think it was 3 months actually she had that cast on. I don't remember exactly. And then that kind of like opened my eyes to the level of care that they had there versus what we had in Dubai, and the difference, because they had specialists and departments, and we were kind of missing that field in the States. Also at the time there was huge acquisitions happening and market consolidation happening, and VCA was being purchased by a big group, and that allowed all of this to kind of happen. Also, it was very, very insurance driven in the States. So
Right.
if you don't have insurance, it was very expensive, and I didn't have insurance at the time. But if you did, then you just got the highest level of care. So it was really, really interesting. And then I came back to Dubai, and I started managing the clinic, and I just couldn't understand why we didn't have the same level of care. And so I kind of went out of my way to try to convince specialists to come to Dubai and understand why we don't have this referral culture, and I was kind of trying to do that quite naively, and most of the so the specialists would pick up and they would just say like, no, there's no way I'm coming, because they would give me these terms and requirements of what they needed. And so
What were the kind of requirements they were looking for?
they would ask for basically the caseload. They would ask for the facility and the equipment. Those are kind of the three core components, and we didn't really have any. So I tried to and I even called around clinics and asked them, if I brought a specialist, would you refer X cases to? And there was this like reluctance, I think partially also because I'm not a vet.
Okay.
So it's like, what are you doing in our industry? Why are you, trying? Why would we refer to you? But the point was they weren't referring to me. So I just kind of went on my way to try to build the caseload myself. And that's the first problem I tried to tackle, because, you can build a facility, you can buy equipment, but the team and the caseload are the two hardest things to come by. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So how did we do that? What was the kind of first steps you took to figuring out the caseload?
I started by opening like little satellite branches, and the first one was JLT. I bought a grooming salon that was kind of going out of business called Pampered Poochies.
Okay.
And the owners wanted to leave, and I think just no longer invested in the idea, and converted it into a primary clinic, and didn't really know much about the industry. I don't know if I would have been able to start it from scratch at the time, but I managed to do it with an existing business, because at least it was something
to work from.
Yeah,
So
I did that, and then it kind of took off. I opened it in JLT, which was I want to say like it is the free zone, but it's also one of the first free zones. So it's where Europeans and expats could open their own businesses. 100%.
Place, and you see all of the expats there, and it's like an amazing location to have.
Exactly, but now expats can own their businesses 100% everywhere. At the time, that was the only place where you could own it without an Emirati partner. So all of these like solopreneurs that were having their own chefs with their own restaurants, they would open their businesses there. So it was kind of the perfect community for veterinary care. And so that was the first place we opened, and it went really well. And we continued to do that. And the brand kind of grew, and we learned as we went along, and we really tried to improve all of the, kind of parts of the business, including the software, the branding, the marketing, and then most importantly, the pet care. So all of it kind of came down to getting the right team and really just focusing, relentlessly on the complicated cases and how we could actually solve that. And I think that's what made us a little bit different.
Right. Well, that's going to be my next question. So how did you manage to turn Modern Vet into a market leader?
That's really it. I mean, it was focusing on the staff and like the team and building the right kind of culture around, pet care. So it was always patient first, and we always, took every case kind of uniquely on its own. And if we got the opportunity to deal with a super complicated case, we didn't really give up on it. We've had surgeries like the V-clamp surgery, where we had to fly our team out to China, create a custom device, do an endoscopic surgery after flying the team from China back into Dubai. And it was, numerous month process. And I think a lot of clinics wouldn't have even tried that.
That's what I was going to say. How many people would be like, okay, let's go train a whole team and we'll learn how to do it and we'll fly them here, instead of just like, we don't offer that.
Exactly. So like when we knew that there was a way and that they were willing to cooperate and kind of do it, we were willing to go to the nth degree to find out, to find a way to, help the pet. And I think it's those kind of, even though there's, not a million of those stories, those I think are the kind of things that build your reputation. And I think like the word of mouth kind of spreads, around the market, and it's a slow burn, but I think eventually people can kind of know your intentions as a business.
Well, yeah, the word of mouth is obviously so important, because even more recently you have people flying in to see doctors at Modern Vet.
Yeah, we had one case where this lady drove over from Kuwait, I think, through Saudi, had to get like numerous permits and import permits and because they couldn't really do any of the surgeries in any of those other countries, and we could do it here. We had the neurosurgeon. We tried to remove the tumor. We were successful in the surgery, and there was no. I think it's called a radio machine. Some
radiotherapy, is it? Yeah.
The radiotherapy machine, yeah. So that's like a multi-million-dollar machine, and there's only one for animals in Turkey. That's the closest place to it. She was ready to drive to Turkey to continue treatment. So at the time, after the surgery, we were emailing the human hospitals to see if we could come in after hours to use their machine. We were told no, but
there's some legal issues with this.
But that's the kind of micromanagement that goes into taking care of like, the complicated cases and really, we needed a special person, manually ventilating the anesthesia or taking care of the anesthesia. I mean, and then we needed neurosurgeon. We needed, for a lot of these surgeries, you need 3-4 people that are very specialized in their kind of
That's the thing. A lot of people will think you have the specialist and we can do the surgery. No. You need to have like the whole team trained to the same level, like trained under the specialist before we can do these kind of things.
You need all of that. You need the facility. You need the right surgery theater. You need the right equipment. Just for certain surgeries, you need an endoscope. That's on its own a very, very expensive piece of equipment. I don't really look at it as the return we're going to get on the piece of equipment. I really look at it as what we can get done. And I think that's the kind of difference that the vets in the group know. Like if there's an interesting case, they don't really have to ask me.
Yeah, it's like, we're going to do it.
we're going to probably do it. So yeah, it just needs to make sense, and we need to have the owners on board.
Yeah, and it just goes to show the lengths that you're willing to go to really try everything in your power to help.
Yeah.
So let us know a few of the biggest challenges you encountered when you were on the creation of Modern Vet and Vet Alliance.
I think early days, one of the most challenging times was COVID, just because we didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because that became the catalyst for a lot of the growth and the changes that happened later, because COVID was, everybody thought the world was ending.
Especially in Dubai, we were so strict, and it was
extremely strict,
yeah,
and we weren't allowed to leave the house, and we were deemed a critical sector, obviously, because we have to deal with, life and death cases. We're a 24-hour hospital, and that was, everybody was bracing for impact. Kind of all businesses were shutting down. People
yeah.
didn't know, can we pay salaries? Do we pay salaries? How do we pay salaries? There's no business. So I was the same, and I was like, I had a letter drafted for cutting everyone's salary, 40%, to until we get through this.
Yeah.
And then ironically, the business just kept increasing. And I think there was this worldwide phenomenon where everybody just started to
Everybody got a dog. Everybody got a COVID dog.
yeah. And or a COVID cat. And then or they noticed existing issues because they were just stuck at home with their pets. And so they would notice things that they wouldn't really pick up on usually.
Or
And
they just wanted the note to go to the vet clinic and
I think that was part of it too. Any excuse to leave, and you could go to the clinic or the vet. So people just went to clinics.
We're going somewhere. What's wrong with the dog?
Exactly. And yeah, business increased like 40%.
Wow.
And we didn't cut any salaries. And, it was a very, very challenging time, I guess, decision-making wise. And trying to navigate how we're going to go through all of that. And yeah, that was kind of a difficult period for us. But then after that, we kind of went through all of the changes as well, as far as once you go into a multi-clinic group, all of your softwares, your policies, everything has to change, because like you're no longer like the law in the clinic. Like you have policies that need to be adapted in different places. So things have to go down on paper. You have to get a certain quality that needs to be kind of represented in many different places, and things like software and how capable it is, and sharing your medical records across different branches, and your X-rays, whether they're in DICOM format, whether they're in JPEG format, how everything kind of all fits together becomes a much more challenging activity, because you have to work in all of the kind of gaps about how primary clinic is going to refer to the bigger clinic, what cases go where,
right.
At what point you should refer, and I think there was a challenge there because I'm not a vet by trade. So but I think that was also to some extent my strength, because I didn't understand it, and so I had to question everything, and nothing was common sense to me, and I had to write everything down, and so that kind of helped create and lay the groundwork.
Transferred to every single branch, right?
Exactly, and kind of position our stance on everything.
And you spoke a little bit earlier about the kind of toxic referral culture, and there is kind of this stigma of like, you're not a vet, or how did you kind of combat the kind of
I don't think it's just something, because I'm not a vet. It's still relatively new, even in the States and Europe. Like 15 years ago, GP clinics were doing everything. Your family doctor was kind of the same person. Human medicine is just way ahead of it. You go to your GP, he'll refer you to an orthopedic surgeon. He's not going to perform the surgery himself.
You expect that in humans, and it's funny that we kind of don't always have the idea. We're like, why can't they do everything?
Exactly, but it was a much smaller field, and in Europe and in the US, it was more GP oriented, and it was a very fragmented market. With the market consolidation and all of the clinics kind of coming together, they managed to kind of build those teams. And if you're a team of generalists and everybody's doing everything, you're just kind of a collection of people or vets. You're not, once you have individual roles, then the quality within those roles can really increase. And I think
it's hard to be a specialist in everything.
You can't be a specialist at everything, exactly. So that happened in Europe, and that happened via market consolidation and insurance. And I think we're kind of seeing the same trends happening in our market. But I think it's going to be quite different here, in the sense that, most of the longtime clinics are expat owned. They have great legacies, and I don't see it, going the same way as the giant markets in Europe and in the US.
Yeah, because it's even such a frustrating thing, even as a vet physio. Like, you will see people, they have a case and they maybe don't have the technology or the specialist to handle it. And it's exactly like what happened with Dachi, that it's like, well, maybe you should put to sleep. And it's still not like fully established for people that like, maybe I can't do this surgery, but I can refer you on to someone, there's a team of specialists here who could do it.
And that's kind of the thing that I set out to fix from the very beginning. I really wanted to get to a point where we had departments and specialties, and And that kind of brought us to, almost 9 years in the making, which is the Veterinary Referral Center. And that's, what's going to open in a couple of weeks. And we're announcing it in the Middle East and Africa Veterinary Conference. And we have a stand there. And the point is, clinics have this reluctance to refer to each other because, these are their clients, these are their patients, and they have the right. I think when there's no referral center and there's somebody that can help, that still kind of trumps everything. But
So let's go back one step and tell everyone what the referral center is. Like, what's going to make it special? What exactly is it? And then how did it come about?
so the referral center is essentially a clinic with a team of specialists that only do referral-based cases. So they don't do general practice, they don't do vaccines, they don't do your first opinions. They get cases referred to from other clinics
Okay.
to deal in very, very specific things. So you have an oncologist, for example, you have a dermatologist. We're licensing the first diplomate dermatologist. And so that, is a huge accomplishment for us.
That's the first.
That's
as you
the
said,
specialists
very
that I
first
said were
idea.
hanging up on me earlier. So
Organic.
yeah, that's what I want to build the team around, and I think it's going to be a first in the country, and when you start training in the specialty fields, eventually you can go on to residency programs. You can actually create your own specialists.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think that can't be done in a general practice. And it breaks down the barriers that exist naturally between competing practices because, by definition, you don't compete. You don't do the thing that is considered the bread and butter of the other, places that are referring to you.
Yeah. So it's kind of this reassurance back, like we're not doing anything other than the specialty that we're here for. To go back into one step before that, to speak about Vet Alliance and kind of how that was helping to create the whole concept of the Vet Referral Center, because you kind of needed to have one before you have the other. So how did you kind of transition into Vet Alliance?
I think so. Our first merger was Blue Oasis, and that was kind of the diagnostics hub, and the first private MRI. And then I mentioned Vienna Vet as well, and then all of these kind of brands together. We couldn't have a specialist here and a specialist there and a specialist here. So we kind of decided to create our structure around, having a referral center that was going to do all of the complex kind of specialist cases, the different clinics with their, their own strong brands and legacies, and then Floof being the kind of technology ecosystem that allows all of the clients to exist within, where you can see your medical records, place your orders, and book your appointments. Yeah.
And how is Vet Alliance different than other groups or private equities?
I think it's different in the sense that, we are the operators. We there's no middleman in between. And I think that's a lot of the time where things get lost. We've proven our concept of being able to manage, clinics at scale, and have a multi-branch setup and being able to do it successfully. And I think that gives the other clinics or groups in the market the confidence that, like, okay, our business is going to be in safe hands without needing to give up their legacy and know that it's going to be changed brands, or it's going to, it's going to be managed by somebody, locally who's already in the industry. And I think our special kind of point is we let vets be vets, and I don't try to be a vet, and I don't think that every vet should try to be a business person, especially at scale, because again, you can't be a specialist at everything. You're gonna have to
something's gotta
compromise
give.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. And did you get a lot of resistance coming into that idea initially, like approaching vet clinics to join Vet Alliance?
I wouldn't say so. I think by the time we did it, we were already the largest player in the market, and we, had really earned our stripes. So clinics understood what we were doing. They understand our culture. They understand our, our stance towards cases and where we wanted to go, and it aligned with most of the doctor-owned practices who, you got to keep in mind, vets become vets out of passion, love for animals. No vet
Not
really,
so much for the admin and the business and
or the money. No vet
Yeah.
really says, I'm going to go to vet school to be, to become rich.
Yeah.
You could make a lot more money in the human field. So these vets become vets by way of
Just
passion,
passion, yeah.
and love for animals. And I think knowing that, and knowing that, their business, their legacy will be safe, and they get to have, we have flexible mechanisms for how they can join the group. and that gives them, they can have their cake and eat it too. They can continue vetting, they can continue doing what they do, without needing to kind of, go the traditional exit route. We do that sometimes, but it's that we have flexible options, and I think that's what allowed the clinics to kind of, you know, uh, put their mind at ease and just kind of continue to do what they do.
And where do you see Vet Alliance going from here?
I really see it kind of, for me, everything culminates with the Veterinary Referral Center. So for right now, that's my main focus, because I really want to get the care to that level. Once I feel like we've kind of done that, and the referral center is operating with the different departments and specialties. We will continue to go into other emirates and then eventually other countries. I
Wow.
do see it reaching within 2 years 30 locations, and
Wow.
and I think all of that needs to feed into the referral center, and by breaking down those kind of barriers of competition, that's kind of in the name, Vet Alliance. So
Yeah.
if we just create an alliance between all of us for the common good and the patient care, then I think we all have that in common.
Amazing. And can you let us know one animal that really changed your life?
Well, as for the clinic, it would definitely be Dutchie, but then for me, it would be Opie. Kind of, yeah, she is the reason. I was in. I started thinking about improving this
The
field.
transformation of it all.
Exactly. So definitely Opie for me.
And what is the hardest part of running a veterinary group?
I'd say definitely it's a people-based business.
Yeah.
So dealing with people at scale,
It's always the hardest part.
now we are 10 locations and soon to be 11, and we're 300 plus people and 70 plus doctors, and with that many interactions and that many people, there's always friction, there's always issues, but I think managing that in the right way is probably one of the most challenging.
But like you said, at least everyone should have the shared common goal, and it makes things a little bit easier if you all have the same kind of passion. At least find it.
Exactly, and I like to think that's why people, apply to join our group. Not saying clinics. I mean, even vets. We don't. We're not, necessarily going out and just outbidding everybody. It's really doctors wanting to join because of the culture and the mission that we're so clearly out to solve. And I think.
Well, yeah, like you said already about sending people to China, there's very little people that will go to these lengths to help their vets to learn. And this is the thing that vets love to do. They love to do these new surgeries and to learn how to improve themselves. That it's not always that common to get these lengths that you will go to do it.
Exactly.
And let us know the final question, the most rewarding part of all of this.
I would say when you have a successful result for a really, really complicated case that other places or kind of
Given up on
or thought were impossible to cure. I know you've.
I was gonna say that's also my favorite part.
That's kind of your thing, I guess. So
it happens so often. There's so many, and they were told he's not gonna walk or just put him to sleep. But I'm 90% of the time they're completely fine. They just need something that maybe you can't offer, but it doesn't mean it's a lost cause.
Well, you're the reason I believe in acupuncture now. So I've seen so many of your cases that go from paralyzed to walking in a matter of weeks. And I think that similarly, we have that in so many other cases, like in oncology, where they just think there are solutions in oncology, in orthopedic surgery, hip replacements,
the thing, the medicine is always changing, and what you thought was possible 10 years ago is completely different now.
Completely different. And there's a difference between something that's not solvable and somebody that can't solve it, one person or one clinic that can't do it, right?
Exactly.
But when you have a collection of clinics, a collection of doctors, the right equipment, the right team, there's very rarely times where there's nothing you can do. Of course, they exist, but I think that there's always a fighting chance in most cases.
Mansoor, thank you so much for coming to speak with us today. And for everyone listening, please let us know if you have any comments or any suggestions or topics you'd like to speak about, you'd like us to speak about more. We'll definitely try our best to answer every one of them. And Mansoor, thank you again for coming to speak with us.
Thank you.